Belief that demons or evil spirits can influence or possess people is not unique to Islam. It is one of the oldest ways of explaining mental disorders in many cultures. Throughout history, man has faced phenomena he couldn't understand and turned to the supernatural for explanations. One of the earliest references to demonic possession come from the Sumerians, who believed all diseases of the body and mind were caused by sickness demons. In Christianity, the Gospels report that Jesus cast out demons from the possessed. In Europe during the Middle Ages, a large number of alleged witches and possessed persons were burned at the stake. Many were undoubtedly suffering from mental disorders. Others were simply women the church or the local community disapproved of for one reason or the other. There are similar beliefs of spirits and demons in Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, and in cultures that practice shamanism and similar animist beliefs. However, as our understanding of the psychological and biological processes of the mind has increased, the more we have discovered that such behavior has a variety of causes that have nothing to do with supernatural forces. As a result, belief in demonic possession has gradually decreased, although it still persists amongst some groups, such as evangelical Christians. Lack of awareness around mental health issues is one factor, and education can drastically help. But one of the hurdles is that many of these beliefs find some justification in religious texts, such as the belief in Jinn, mentioned in several places in the Quran and Hadith. The concept of Jinn predates Islam. Pre-Islamic Arabs believed soothsayers and poets were inspired by the Jinn. It was believed they inhabited desolate, dingy or dark places where humans felt fear and danger. It is likely that such beliefs arose due to the tendency to ascribe agency to random events or movements, even if none can be seen, because it offered an evolutionary advantage. For example, if early man believed the rustle of leaves in the bush was a predator and not just the wind, he was more likely to survive. It didn't matter if he was wrong most of the time. This behavior was then passed on to others. However, if someone believed it was just the wind, although they may have been right most of the time, they only had to be wrong once to end their contribution to the gene pool. In this way, attributing agency to unknown phenomena became the norm. When Islam came, it confirmed the belief in jinn, invisible creatures that live amongst us, made of smokeless fire. They have free will and can be believers or non-believers. They can take on visible forms and interfere and trick humans. The word for mad, majnoon, comes from the same root as jinn. Jinn are also referred to as shayateen, and Iblis, who refused to bow down to Adam, is a jinn in Islam and not a fallen angel as in Christianity. The Quran and Hadith both talk about how jinn and shayateen misguide or whisper waswasa into the ear of weak-minded people who are not performing the prayers on time or following Islamic commandments diligently. Surah Al-Baqarah says, "Those who take unlawful interest will stand before God like one who suffers from a mental imbalance because of Satan's touch." The word for touch here is mas, and this is used to denote being afflicted or possessed by Satan, i.e., he has been touched by a demon. Hadith mentions several ways of curing a person possessed by jinn. These include reciting specific verses of the Quran and blowing over water or olive oil, and either bathing in the water or rubbing the olive oil on the body, or reciting verses and blowing over water mixed with honey and black seeds and drinking it. This is repeated for 7 days, or a month, or as long as necessary. This is called ruqya, and a person who practices it is called a raqi. Unfortunately, many raqis go far beyond these practices, and Muslim communities are plagued with charlatans making money, preying on the vulnerable, and doing a great deal of damage to people who are in need of professional medical help. Many raqis make grand claims they cannot fulfill, and raise false hope amongst desperate Muslims who are struggling with the heartbreaking reality of a child or family member suffering from mental health issues. In some cases, physical violence is used, and there have been many cases of a raqi attempting to beat the jinn out of a person, or binding them and confining them to a locked room. In some extreme cases, patients have died as a result of such abuse. Sadly, many of those suffering genuinely believe they are possessed by jinn, and may act out behaviour of an angry jinn or declare that shaitan is telling them to spit on the Quran and so on. It is not unusual for a person to exhibit their psychosis according to their cultural expectations and beliefs. Those from a devout Christian background, for example, might spit on a cross or believe that they are Jesus. For those from a Muslim background who believe in jinn, these experiences are very genuine and real to them, and it may well be that some traditional treatments such as reading the Quran and prayers can be comforting to the individual and have a calming and positive effect. But it is ultimately a placebo and should only be done alongside professional mental health treatment, which should always be the main recourse for help. Unfortunately, in some cases, mental health services are only consulted after symptoms have become chronic, and for many the intervention of traditional healers can be very damaging, and apart from physical abuse, there are well-documented cases of sexual abuse by traditional healers abusing their power over vulnerable individuals and their families. Another problem with the idea of demonic possession is that it can blame the victim for their illness. The implication, either implicit or explicit, is that they are weak or sinful, compounding a very real mental health issue with guilt and shame. It can also become a self-fulfilling prophecy that when a person is told they are possessed by an evil demon, they come to believe that they are and behave in a violent and aggressive manner. This happened in a recent case of the man who had gone to a faith healer for depression and was told he was possessed by a jinn. His condition then worsened, and he became violent and stabbed the faith healer to death. In some cases, the person is actually prevented from seeking the professional help they need, and confined in the house, with the result that their condition becomes much worse and much harder to treat once mental health services become involved. There is also another extremely disturbing side to this, and that is that perfectly healthy individuals are made to feel they are mentally ill and possessed simply for rejecting or rebelling against the cultural norms of their community. In many cases, it may be simply a phase of teenage angst and rebellion that a great many youngsters experience, while at other times it may be that they reject aspects of their traditional lifestyle or views on sexuality. Or they may have started to question Islam itself. Instead of engaging with the person in a supportive manner, many Muslims react angrily and label them as possessed. This is something ex-Muslims experience all the time. In the minds of many Muslims, for someone to reject Islam is unthinkable. They are able to excuse the outside non-Muslim community because they are ignorant of Islam, but no one who knows Islam can possibly reject it, especially those members of our family and community. They must quite literally be mad, and faith healers are brought in to exorcise the jinn from them. Finally, I want to speak directly to those parents or family members who do have loved ones suffering mental health issues. I want to encourage you to seek professional help from your GP and mental health services. There are a huge variety of therapies and medications that can help. In some cases, it may be just about supporting them through a difficult time. Other times, it may be more long-term. There is no magic cure, but the right therapy and medication can help enormously. You can and will get through this. You and your loved ones will have a quality of life as good as anybody else. But I urge you to avoid bringing in faith healers. There's nothing they can do that you can't do yourself. If you want to read Quran or offer prayers or drink Zamzam water or use honey and black seeds, you can do that without paying someone to do it for you. God can hear you just as well as he can hear the Raqi, and God doesn't need your money. But under no circumstances must you resort to harsh or violent tactics. Most of all, you can give them love, comfort and support, and that is the best magic of all.